Let's talk about volunteer position descriptions. Volunteer position descriptions are important for a variety of reasons. The first of which is that the process of creating a written position description gives you an opportunity to assess the viability of the role, to determine if this really is a good role for a volunteer. It also gives you an opportunity to clarify responsibilities. This reduces any confusion about what a volunteer is really signing up to do. Gives you an opportunity to be very clear about the meaning and purpose of the volunteer role and how this volunteer responsibility connects to the larger mission of your Main Street. Helps to manage expectations, both on the part of the Main Street community as well as on the part of the volunteer. What is this volunteer signing up to do? Position descriptions establish the basis for supervision and evaluation. If we're very clear in our position descriptions, we both know what we can expect from one another in terms of training and support, and we have a written document we can go back to if for any reason things aren't working out and we need to revisit what those expectations and agreements were. It helps us to measure impact and celebrate success. When we're clear on the position description about the responsibilities, as well as about the meaning and purpose of this volunteer role, we can look back and celebrate the accomplishments of the role. And finally, it supports and informs recruitment. Once we've been really clear in writing about what we're looking for in a volunteer, we can then easily use that to communicate that message to the community and help us find the right volunteer for the job. There are a number of key components to effective volunteer position descriptions, not all of which are necessary for every position description, but all should be considered when creating a new position description. You want to give your position a discrete title so that you can recruit for it, track it, and know what role a volunteer is filling. You want to be explicit in the position description about listing the mission of your Main Street program as well as the purpose of this specific volunteer role. You want to be as specific as possible about the duties and responsibilities for this role so that someone can be clear about if they signed up in this role, what they would actually be doing. You also want to list out the qualifications. What does a person need to be able to do, or know in order to volunteer in this way? What's the time commitment? Be honest and upfront about what you really need in a volunteer for this kind of role. Be specific if it's for a specific event that is at a specific date and time, or be detailed about what the expectations are on a weekly or monthly basis. If that's flexible, that it doesn't need to be every Tuesday at 2 p.m., but just that they need to volunteer during business hours once a week for 4 hours. Work location. Be clear about exactly where they would need to be doing this work. If they need to come into the office, if they'd be volunteering outside on Main Street, or if they can do this work remotely. Also explain what sort of training is either required or available to volunteers in this role. Think about what benefits there are to the volunteer of volunteering in this way. Think about benefits that are both tangible and intangible. List out any application or screening protocols the volunteer needs to be aware of. Is there a written application they need to submit? Is there any sort of screening that they need to undergo, like an interview or a background check? And finally, be sure to include who the volunteer would work most directly with, who their supervisor or support person would be, and then contact information for whomever they would need to contact to get more information and sign up. In this section of the toolkit, you'll find a volunteer position description template with instructions that you can then fill out and then delete the red instruction boxes, as well as several sample Main Street volunteer position descriptions, which are also editable to customize them to your community. A few tips. Use the toolkit template to create your own community's template for position descriptions. Adding your template, any community-specific information, then delete the red instruction boxes, save that as your template, and use that consistently for creating new position descriptions in your Main Street community. Ask existing volunteers to help you fill in the blanks when creating position descriptions. Those that have already been volunteering in this way can probably provide even greater detail about what is really involved in this volunteer role. And finally, try your best to create at least a broad position description for every volunteer opportunity in your community. That might mean, for example, for event volunteer opportunities, that you create an overarching position description that describes all of the various roles that volunteers might be assigned to, but create unique position descriptions for roles that have greater levels of responsibility.